Well, hello. What do shoes, radios, and cereal have to do with your chance of business survival through this COVID pandemic? Well, we're going to talk about that and some lessons that we've learned from the Great Depression and other subsequent recessions right after this. Hi again. I'm Russ Siegel. I am the executive director of Sequoyah Fund and your host for Live with Sequoyah Fund. Thanks for joining me today, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube. I'm glad to have you with us. I want to tell you a little parable. It's a parable from a time when people traveled mainly by ship. And it's about two men who worked for a shoe company. They were sent to a small African village to expand the company's operations. And after a few days of being in this village, one of the men wrote back to the company and he said, "May as well bring me home, get me a ticket. No one here wears shoes." The other man also wrote back to the company and he said, "No one here wears shoes. Send a boatload of shoes." My first question is, how do you look at your customers? Right now, it's easy to say, my customers don't have shoes. There's no reason for us to be here. COVID-19 has caused us to be very introspective. It's caused us to look inward to see all of the things that are maybe wrong with our business, maybe things we wish we could have done better, maybe wish we could do now that we can't do. But right now, it's very easy to look at the world and say, the world doesn't wear shoes. Get me out of this place. But what if you looked at your customers and said, everybody's barefoot, but they need what I have to sell? During the Great Depression, and we look back on the Great Depression over time and we say, okay, well, it was a long time ago. People were poor. Everybody was poor. Everybody ate dirt because nobody had any money. There was no money to be had. Nobody was buying anything. And that's just not true. The Great Depression was tracked officially over a period of 15 years. 15 years. And a lot of economists now agree that we were not fully free of its grips until 1959, when Eisenhower was president. So some people say, well, the Great Depression was over when World War II started. Not really. During World War II, we still had rationing. We rationed foods. We rationed sugar. We rationed candy, tin, steel, aluminum, rubber. A lot of other things were rationed, but you don't hear a lot of family stories about how tough it was to get through that because people were sort of used to it because things had been rationed during the Great Depression as part of life. So World War II didn't pull us out of the Great Depression. The Great Depression didn't end when Roosevelt was elected. In fact, it didn't end when Roosevelt was elected a second time. And surprise, it didn't end when Roosevelt was elected a third time either. It took time. And we look back on that time and we say, well, everybody was poor, nobody had any money. But there were companies that said, people do have money to spend. We've got to find them. We've got to stay in touch with them. We've got to stay in front of them. And we've got to figure out a way to sell what we have to them because they need what we have to sell. So from shoes, let's talk about Radio. Yes. During the Great Depression, there were years where we had GDP growth, gross domestic product. It's a barometer of our nation's productivity. And most of those 15 years were positive growth years. Some of those years were flat and a few of them were negative, hence the Great Depression. Part of what made it a Great Depression was that it was a heavy, hard punch in the very beginning, and it was global. Sound familiar? Yeah. Sounds a little bit like what we're going through right now. A heavy, hard punch that's global. But there were some industries that grew through the Great Depression. Radio was chief among them. When families had a little bit of money, they saved up and they bought a radio. Radio was their internet. It was their way of staying connected to their neighbors, to their community, and to the world. It was also a form of entertainment. If you think about radio, maybe it's hard to think about sitting around a radio and being entertained, but let's think about what we do right now. We sit around Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu, Disney Plus. We watch television right now. We try to escape. We want to be entertained. People are begging for movie theaters to open back up because we desperately want Hollywood to give us something decent to watch again. There are three things we know people spent money on throughout the Great Depression, and we've tracked this in every recession since, and we know that people spend money on these three things. They spend money to be entertained. We want an escape. We don't want to sit around and watch the COVID news and watch the number of cases rise and hospitalizations and argue over graphs and charts and listen to medical professionals with different opinions. That gets old and that gets a little sad. It brings us down. So we want to be entertained. Number two, we want to eat well. I have family members who made it through the Great Depression and they don't talk about a lot of things from the Great Depression, but they do remember they ate well. They grew their own gardens and they had good food to eat. And when they had a little bit of money, they would buy nice things. They would buy chocolates or something. And even during World War II, that was a treat. So people are going to be entertained. They're going to eat well. And the third thing is they're going to look good. Yes, we're a vain species. Humans like to look good, whether it's having our hair fixed, whether it's buying a new piece of clothing, whether it's having your nails, your makeup, your eyebrows, whatever. You know, during the Great Depression, maybe it was just that someone could afford a new pair of stockings or a new hat. That was a big, big deal. But people spent money on those things, and those were growth industries. But why did radio grow so doggone much? Radio was huge. It was the internet of its time. It was the television of its time, and television would have grown by leaps and bounds had it existed. Well, the issue is you had companies that said, our customers are barefoot, but they need our shoes. We need to get in front of them. So we've talked about shoes. We've talked a little bit about radio. Let's bring it all together with some cereal. At the beginning of the Great Depression, the biggest cereal company in the world by a long shot was C.W. Post. In fact, Kellogg had worked for Post for a while and learned how to make cornflakes, but he thought he could do it better. And I'm so glad when they started putting sugar on that stuff and calling them Frosted Flakes. Perfection. But I digress. He learned how to make cornflakes from the biggest company in the world, and he started a little cereal manufacturer in Battle Creek, Michigan called Kellogg. Innovative, right? And he wasn't even a speck on Post's radar. But at the beginning of the Great Depression, Post did what a lot of businesses do. They hunkered down. They cowered, and they said, we're going to run out of cash. We just don't have a lot of resources. Let's conserve everything. They pulled back on their advertising and marketing, and they dropped off their customers' radar. In fact, they didn't just drop off their customers' radar. They dropped off their investors' radar. People who had money in the company looked around and said, we don't see post anymore? Does this company even exist? They got worried and they started pulling their dollars out of the stock market. But there was a star on the rise, and that was Kellogg. Kellogg did a few really big things that brought them to the forefront during the Great Depression. The first is Kellogg borrowed money. God, who wants to borrow money in the middle of a Great Depression? But he saw it as a necessary evil, so to speak. And that's coming from a guy who lends money. But he borrowed money. He borrowed a lot of money for its time. And he doubled the size of his Battle Creek, Michigan plant. Doubled it. And then he cut everyone's hours. Oh, what a heartless beast to cut everyone's hours. At the time, he was running 3 8-hour shifts per day. He cut everyone's hours to 6 hours per day, paid them the same amount. What that did was it freed up 6 hours a day to create a fourth shift. And he reached out to the unemployed in and around Battle Creek, and he said, you need us more than we need. We need you more than you need us right now. You need some money. You need a home. You need clothing. You need stability. You don't need cereal. What you need is what the cereal can provide. And he put them to work. And it was a huge PR boost for Kellogg. He made a lot of friends throughout Michigan and the upper Midwest by doing this because word spread like wildfire. He also doubled his investment in radio advertising. Kellogg saw what radio was becoming. He saw the potential. And he said, if we're going to get people to buy cereal, we have to talk to them. We have to get in front of them. Radio was that escape. People were watching or people were listening to this new entertainment called soap operas. Soap operas were started by the company that owned Borax at the time, and Borax and several others started running entertaining dramas. You know, at the time, a typical radio commercial was about 15 to 20 minutes long. It was essentially an infomercial, and they were boring. People actually turned their radios off to not have to listen to the commercials. But they would listen to the dramas. They would listen to the Ma Barkers and all of the original soap operas. And in the middle, there would be a short message identifying a problem that people didn't even know they had, and then solving that problem in 30 seconds to 1 minute. It was an amazing time. And Kellogg's sales skyrocketed. Soap sales skyrocketed. Basically, every business, every sector that advertised on radio started to skyrocket. If you are out of sight, you are out of mind. If you're sitting around thinking, I'm just going to hunker down and weather this, I'm going to wait it out, and when everything opens back up, we'll turn the lights back on. Trust me, it is not going to work. It's not going to work because when your customers drive by your business right now, if there are no lights on, that means nobody's home and they've given up on you. It's going to be hard to get those folks back. Look at the businesses you frequent. Look at the businesses you've stayed close to, that you've had a relationship with throughout this pandemic thus far. Are they easy to access? Do they have apps? Do they have websites? Do they make it easy to order? Do they make it easy to pick up? Do they make it easy to get what they sell? Do they make it easy to communicate, to complain, to return? All the things that we do with a business, we have to stop looking internally for a moment and we have to start looking externally. We have to put our startup pants back on. Think about how you looked at your business before you started. Did you think, oh, I've got to do this, but I've really got to save a lot of money. I'm not sure I can sell that product or make that happen. No, it was all about the customer. How do I serve the customer? How do I take care of the customer? Because the customer is going to take care of me. Well, if we take care of the customer now, the same thing will happen. Again, a global pandemic can cause us to navel gaze. My navel, you know what I mean by navel gaze, right? It's where you look at your belly button and just say, woe is me. Now's not the time for that. Now is the time to look at other businesses around you and say, how can I serve them? How can I help them? How can I get them in a better position? How can I improve their condition. If you are a graphic designer, stop thinking now about how to do more graphic design and start thinking about how to help the businesses down the street stay in front of their customers. If you're a t-shirt designer, stop thinking about how to make more, about how to help your customers get the word out about their products and services to keep their name in front of their customers. You are now essentially in the business rescue business. If you're in the restaurant business, think about how do your customers need to get what you have to sell? Do they need home delivery? Do they need prepared, prepackaged, prepared home meals? Do they want to buy your secret sauce in a jar or in a can? What is it about you that people find so attractive, and how do you stay in front of them with that? You know, it's really easy just to hunker down. That is the easy thing, and it seems counterintuitive that we want to spend money, that we want to get out in front of people, that we want to be bold. But being bold is what wins the game. Being bold is what's going to keep you in business. Do you want to be right back where you were in early or mid-March before this whole thing started, or do you want to leapfrog that and be far, far above that? We have to look at our customers and say, okay, they're not wearing shoes, but I've got lots of shoes. We have radio. Not only do we have radio, we have the internet, we have direct mail, we have phones, we have, get out there and hire a skywriter, for goodness sake. Let's do whatever it takes to get back in front of our customers and to let them know we're here and we're here to serve them. This is not about us. I'm not calling you to make a sale so that I can keep my business afloat. I'm here to help you keep your business afloat, because we all know that if we take care of our customers will take care of us. So put your startup pants on, figure out how you're going to make this happen. We here at Sequoyah Fund are here to help you, not just with money. If you want to borrow money, if you want to be like Kellogg and double the size of your operation, you want to hire more people, we're here. That's what we do. But if you just want to figure out ways to stay in front of your customers, or wow, novel idea, let's use our talents and our expertise to go out and find new markets. Maybe the market for what you sell has completely dried up and it's in danger of going away. What can your skills, your talents, your expertise, your knowledge, what can you do with that? Where can you bring that to bear? Are there new markets? Are there other people who need a variation of what you do? Now, when things get back to normal, and they will, because they always do, whatever normal is, I'm not sure what normal looks like. I just refuse to use the term new normal, because whatever normal is normal. But whenever we get back to normal, now you'll have your old business segment plus whatever new business you were able to pick up. You see, this is going to exponentially expand your business. It has the potential to do that. So call us. Get out there and do something radical today to get in front of your customers. If you need to contact us, right there, right there is our website. You can go there. You can set an appointment with anyone. You can give us a call. You can talk to us. We are not just here for loans. We're here for technical assistance. We're here to help you do the things that you do and do them better, do them for more people, and ultimately to make more money. So I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks again for joining us this week on Live with Sequoyah Fund, and I'll see you next time.